Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are very, very well. Just want to highlight, I have a cat lying just just here. So if a big fluffy thing gets up, you'll see Mr. Toes. More importantly, what's going on here today on the wonderful CCI? A bit later on at 3 o'clock, we have Wellbeing Habits with Katie Shute coming up. Also, General American Accent with Laura Neal at 5 o'clock. Also, the latter part of October, we're doing the thing that we're calling coffee mornings. So if you have a cabaret or a play or a musical or a short film or a big major film that you want to promote, anything to do with the arts, we want you to promote it. We want you to come on here, 30 minutes, mug of coffee, cup of tea, and you get a platform where you can actually promote what you are up to. So please use that, maintain that. Let's keep this industry going. Also in November, we have very exciting news. 14th, 15th of November, we are going live. So I know we're live now, but CCI Live. So we'll actually be in the studio. Yes, we are teaming up with the wonderful Talent Artistic Group who have the most incredible spaces, studios in Luton Hoo. Really big, so we can socially distance. There are very limited spaces for this. There is also a fee, but if you'd like to join the mailing list so that you can find out about who the practitioners are going to be, what the day is about, and so on and so forth, I will let you know now. Write to connect@collectivecreativeinitiative.co.uk. As I've said every day, I'm sorry about that. When we came up with the name, we didn't think about the email address. So connect@collectivecreativeinitiative.co.uk, and either put mailing list in the subject box for the CCI Live, or put coffee morning in if you want to come on and promote what you are up to. A lot going on, right? That's enough about what's going on the CCI. Let's bring in our guest now. He is the awesome Sam Griffiths. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Very good. Welcome on this very wet. The rain just came down. It was pretty insane outside.
How's it been? Spitting in London. Spitting, I think it's the word, yeah.
So who is Sam Griffiths? Where did he come from? Where did it all begin? Tell us a little bit about, first of all, what your job is now, and then let's go back and where did it all start?
Well, my job now is I'm a senior promoter at a lovely company called Cuffe Taylor, which is part of Live Nation Entertainment here in the UK. I'm basically a promoter is the counterpart of a producer, but in the music and more wider live entertainment world. We do a lot more hands-on, sort of like part of the wider management team of the artist management agents. We do a lot of marketing. That's a slightly bigger role than what I've done in the past with producing per se. But yeah, it's basically a producer of like sort of music events and different parts of entertainment world. But yeah, that's my job, and yeah, it's a lovely company, and Live Nation are a brilliant, forward-thinking global employer, and yeah, having a great time. But
fantastic. We'll come on to that in more detail, because I think it's a really interesting role, and certainly because you started in the theatre, which we'll come on to in a second. But it is, I always feel like that there are jobs within our industry, and that's why we it's so great to have you on here, that people just don't know about. They just don't know about what they do. So I want to come on in more detail about what you do. But where did it all start? You went to Aberystwyth, right? Was that?
I did, yeah. So it all started back in lovely, beautiful, picturesque Redditch. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's not as lovely and picturesque, but where I grew up was lovely. It was just on the outskirts. And I went to a really great high school. So we had like the free tier, like American system. So it's like one of the only counties that had it in the UK. And I went to a specialist performing arts college. I loved performing. I really loved singing. I found the acting hard and wasn't the best at remembering lines or lyrics. So that's something that kept going throughout my life, so I should have known then. But yeah, no, I had some great years there, and so Redditch, if no one knows where it is, just south of Birmingham. It's quite a big scene around there. Did quite a lot of stuff at Stratford at the RSC, because that's about 15-20 minutes from us. So yeah, it's a bustling sort of arts hub around there. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do, mate. That was it. I had this conversation with my careers advisor, who probably was maybe the worst person to speak to, but ultimately the best person to speak to. Like, do you want to be an actor? No, I don't think so. But I want to do something in theatre, but I don't really know. I don't really want to study drama. I'm not very good at English. What do I do? And they asked me a very, very, very serious question that like dictated the next 4 years of my life, which was, what's your favourite TV show? And I was like, of course, 24. Jack Bauer, love it, breathe it. And they said, well, Sam, there is a course for you, and it's called International Politics with Intelligence Studies, where you study international relations, you study politics, and then you also study national security. So like the pathway is into government or into private security services, or a whole host of areas. And I went, yeah, that sounds great. And I went to Aberystwyth, which I never heard of and couldn't say properly here. I was there probably, which is the most beautiful, gorgeous little seaside town in West Wales, and had the time of my life there, made the best friends. And that was had a really, really, really great art centre and a brilliant sort of drama department that let students get involved who were not within their sort of curriculum area. So I definitely spent more time working at the Art Centre, doing musical theatre productions with my beloved Musical Theatre Society Curtain Call, who I've made lifelong friends with, and got to meet some really influential people who would be influential in my life. I got to meet the lovely Anthony Williams from Keddy Scott, and worked with him, 10 years ago now. But I was like 19, I think, and yeah, so that was my first time I met him, and now he's a very, very good friend, and through him met you and lots of other people. So that was Aberystwyth for me.
So when you were there studying this degree, how did you then go, wait a minute, actually I want to do more on the production side of...
Oh yeah, I just skipped that bit, didn't I? I did some shows. No, I got there, and on my very first day, so you have like Freshers Week. Yeah. They had a sort of week before where you could go into halls like 4 days early. Met some great friends, and straight away went, what is the Musical Theatre Society here? And they said it's a society called Curtain Call. They're really great. And on my first day of Freshers Week, there was like this big fair, and you go up to different societies. Made a beeline, said hello. They were going for drinks that night. I was like, that's great, sounds like me. And then so then that's how I sort of met them, and met some, I think on that first day I met a great friend and collaborator of mine called Will Alder, who worked on many projects since, and so all those sort of things it then just transpired. Started doing shows, I acted and did some musicals for like the first 2 years. In the second year, sort of became like the treasurer, but also wanted to do a bit of production, but I wasn't a technician, and I knew that. Right. And then year 3 and year 4, I sort of fell into what I now know as a producing role, but at the time it was called production manager, but I really wasn't the production manager. So again, another great friend and collaborator I brought in, this guy called Reese, who I believe is hopefully watching, or we fondly call Hedge, and that's a completely different story. But he sort of became that production manager role, and I sort of took on the producing role, but didn't really know exactly what it was. And we were very brave in our sort of last year and decided, why don't we take a risk? We were doing lots of shows in a brilliant small Welsh theatre called Awr Goch, and that's like the Welsh Children's Theatre, and based there rather than Cardiff, which is great because it's in a regional sort of place. And the Aberystwyth Arts Centre was like a 350 cap theatre. And I had worked there on like events with my friends who were sort of working there anyway. And we decided to do Fame there, and we got the license and did 2 shows, did very well. And you learn things along the way, and I'm laughing because a lot of my friends will remember who were there the first night. We were all very excited, had a great big technical team of lots of alumni came back, so it's quite a big thing for the society to do, and had some really brilliant experienced people come back who are professional DSMs and are working on the show. And for all the experience, we'd forgotten to turn off the smoke machine during the day between the dress and the show. And so when it came on for, like, you know, the car came out, the smoke was going, it was absolutely great. You know, the last number, and the smoke didn't stop going, and the smoke didn't stop going, and then tried to pull out the wall, and the smoke didn't stop going, and smoked out the entire theatre, and had to evacuate. But you know what? You learn these lessons, mate. So that was the first time I knew that I wasn't going to be a technician, and I wasn't going to be a performer. And I was like, I definitely want to be sitting in the audience watching the show happen and knowing it's somebody else's issue rather than mine personally to fix, I guess. But no, it was a great learning curve.
We talk about all the time that as an actor, you should try and do as many other roles as possible, or at least help out. Like, you know, when I was an actor, my first ever show was Damn Yankees at the Bridewell Theatre. I left college early to go and do it. It was fantastic. I almost transferred to the West End, but the Broadway version came over and all that kind of stuff. But they were low on people helping with the set, so I stayed after rehearsals and painted set and, you know, laid the floor and all of that. You know, and I thought, yeah, I'll help, like, put up lights and all that. The one time I was asked to stage manage a sort of fringe presentation at Wimbledon Theatre, studio theatre of a new Charles Miller musical, and would you stage manage it? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I am literally the worst. If everyone on the planet died and you needed a stage manager and I was the only person left, I still wouldn't ask me to do it. That's
great. That's great.
I was so terrible, but I only knew that because I did it, you know.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? And I'm a firm believer in that. And actually, that's sort of like segues nicely, I guess, into what I did next, which we've spoken about at length before, which was at the end of university, didn't know what I wanted to do again. Well, I think I did. I knew I wanted to be a producer, but I didn't know how to get there. I didn't really have many friends or contacts. I knew Anthony Williams, but not as well as I do now. And so I was coming up to the end of the year, and I was like, okay, you know, what can I go for? So there was internships, and that was a very tried and tested route. And then there wasn't really any training courses as such. This is before, you know, you get the experience to go on to stage one, which is very recognised. But, you know, at that level, I don't think the central course for creative producing was necessarily as established then. And so at the same time, I applied for many internships. And I also applied to go to drama school at Royal Welsh College in Cardiff to do a stage and event management course, because I had been reliably told a producer needs to know basically a little about everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're not an expert in every field, but you do need to make those decisions. And it's about money and business, which is the side that I guess I got a bit from the politics side and business side of things, which I really love. And yeah, so I applied for both. And maybe not having the best experience to get into it and do either, but I managed to get a 4-month internship with the wonderful Kenny Wax, who is very influential in my early career. And then I also managed to somehow naively get into the stage and event management masters, thanks to a wonderful woman called Antonia Collins, who is a legend in the stage management and production management sort of sphere. And she took a massive chance on me because she knew, I was honest with her, and I said, I really want to go and be a producer, but I need to learn to go off and do that.
Yeah.
And she had faith in me and gave me that chance, which was, you know, really has helped. But yeah, Kenny Wax was amazing. I spent the summer with him as his production intern, and it was the year that Top Hat had finished in the West End, so we're taking it out on tour. And then it was also the year that Kenny had found a lovely little comedy show called The Play That Goes Wrong. Well, it wasn't called that at the time. And he'd put it on a 20-week tour to test the water, and I got to work on the original West End production with Jonathan Henry and Henriette Mischief and all the team. And yeah, it was an amazing time to be there. And I look back at it now and go, what a summer to do a really beautiful, you know, it was a fortnightly running musical, so it would go for 2 weeks at most venues, which, you know, there's not like many that necessarily do that now. Jersey Boys is sort of like that sort of scale. And I mean, you know, Top Hat, gorgeous dancing from Bill Dean. So that sort of level of musical, and then just sitting in on production meetings and stunt meetings and just going, what the hell are these guys doing? Like, what's happening? And they are absolute mavericks in their own way, and it was amazing to be part of that original team that had sort of, you know, a small cog, and to watch it all happen and learn was incredible. And Kenny's really helped me along the way, for definite. But yeah, and then Royal Welsh College was amazing. Did a year's masters, got to work with the lovely Vivian Kerr on the musical side of things, and she's become a dear friend. And yeah, Antonia really pushed me, and a lot of the team there, Daz, Elle, they pushed me to learn and challenged me to learn as much as I could. I knew I was going to be a terrible stage manager. I knew I was going to be a terrible and even worse DSM. Oh my gosh, that's the hardest role. Jesus Christ, that was inside. Yeah,
It's mental.
I get nightmares and sweats thinking about it. Like, oh my god, how are they call a musical? Yeah, like what's going on?
Give me a brush and I'll sweep the stage for you, but don't give me
I'll paint the stage. I can paint. I can move this from A to B. Hopefully on time. Hopefully hitting. I mean, you know, it was great. But I got to work when I was there with the company, and good pal Luke McCall was training at that time. So you know, being able to watch him grow from that has been amazing as a friend, to go, this is brilliant. And actually later on, we've worked with him last year on 2 of our proms events at Cuffe Taylor, which is lovely to be able to sort of work with your old friends, really. I think that's a real nice sort of roundabout way. But like just going back on what you said, like you need to learn as many different things as possible. And I think some of the best actors have done that. Yeah. And there's some great cases, isn't there, of is it Jenny Galloway? I'm sure she literally used to do ASMing at the Watermill. And so when she's not doing a film or TV or something massive and important, you know, in the West End, she's literally driving the van around the Watermill because she lives in Newbury. And that's insane, isn't it? A West End award-winning actress, you know, actor, sorry, she's incredible. And it's, you know, she completely buys into that.
There's a thing though. Oh, by the way, whilst we've halted, if you have any questions for Sam, you can ask. If you subscribe to the channel, just go to live comments and write those questions in. Do it now, and I will come to them as we go. Don't save them all to the end, because there is a slight delay from when you write the question to when we get it. So please feel free to start writing those questions in now, and I will go through those. I think that, you know, until you've lit a show, for example, and as an actor standing on the stage and being lit and being focused, and then sort of they go, right, great, can you just stand still please? And then you kind of wander up and they're like, guys, can you just stand still? And until you're on that other side, and you know, like I remember I lit a show again, and I asked everyone very specifically to wear colours of what their characters would be wearing in terms of their costumes, because I was in the show, and people came in white and yellow and all of this, and I was like, great, can you all get changed? Like, I didn't think it would matter. I lost my absolute because it's so important that I wanted. I couldn't, you know, I didn't want them to be wearing white when their characters were black to finalize the focusing of the show and the colors, and it drove me nuts. And it's so, until you have been up a ladder holding a lamp at 1,000 degrees or whatever, having the skin burnt off you and dust fall into your mouth, you don't know. And
absolutely. I think it's so important that now more drama schools are having stage management courses. I mean, most of the top ones do anyway, but I think they are definitely bringing in those cohorts together. So where usually you might not have that much intermingling, you might just do your course of study and their course of study. I think that's really important. Royal Welsh is brilliant because it's basically a massive art centre in Cardiff, and everyone shares the same facilities. You become very good friends with lots of different people, be it musicians, be it, you know, actors, and there's been quite a few really great ones, and well, lots of great actors, but there's been quite a lot of success from that college from when I was there. Anto Boyle went off to do Scorpius Malfoy in Harry Potter. Tom Harris, you know, has done everything, and White Lines on Netflix, and it's just, and Jacobs on, you know, lots of good powers are doing really great stuff, which is lovely to see, and to be there at that time is really exciting, right? But I mean, that's the biggest thing. I think every actor should spend at least 1 hour just sitting down with a stage manager they know and say, okay, on behalf of our kind, give it to me. What are the worst things? I've got to think maybe again. But just tell us how would things go better, because I do believe if there was space for the company stage manager or the company manager or the stage manager to have like half-hour chat with, not at a professional level maybe, but with stage school actors, to go, somebody who they might actually work with on a West End musical or, at the Royal Court or something. I think that'd be so bloody important for people to sit there and go, oh, okay, this does mean, this is work time. We're in a professional environment, right? And the sooner you have that, the easier it is, because when you know what's coming up, I think you're much more prepared and you're, much better for that. And I tell you what, there's definitely need to mention. So Antonia, who was like our course leader for stage management, she runs a brilliant project called the Bamboo Manager Project, and that's like an online sort of platform connecting stage managers from all over the globe to share their experience. But her and another great stage manager called Jackie George, who has gone out to UAE to do you work, Jack? I think Jackie's worked on some tours. I don't know if you did in Wales or not, but yeah, she's gone out to UAE to do a lot of work out there, and Antonia has done a lot of work in Hong Kong in changing their health and safety practices and all of that sort of stuff. But they have a joint podcast called Stand By Please, and oh my god, I binged it in an afternoon, because you listen to them talking to various different people. So an MP was on there, a great actor was on there, Bruce Guthrie, our dear friend, was on there. Yeah. Who's a very brilliant director and very stylized in his way of doing it. And it's so good to hear what different people have in terms of their relationship with stage management. But oh my gosh, it's so important for any actor, musical theatre actor, performer, to just understand that that person's there to A, keep you safe, B, make you look and feel as good and comfortable to give your best performance. And when you walk off and something's gone wrong and you hand them a prop and go, oh my god, you did, I don't think people realise that's a human being. I think they're usually thought of last in the pile, shouted at the most by the director, but maybe that might have to be directed at somebody else. And they are the humility that most stage managers show is incredible. So to learn about it from some of the top people has really set me up for I
always say that be nice to respect everyone. Obviously, it seems like an obvious thing to say, because one night you might walk on and your microphone doesn't work or your spotlight doesn't come on. So you've done this summer with Kenny Wax. You've graduated from your course. How did you then get that first job, and what was it, and what did it look like, and what were your responsibilities?
So after drama school, as part of the course, I had to do some placements. So I stayed to do a placement as a DSM in order to tick the boxes of the course. I think everyone at Royal Welsh will happily put their hands up and say that was an awful experience for everybody, including myself. But my gosh, I learned a lot about things. And then I went off and did an amazing placement with the absolute legend that's Caroline Hazeldine at Grantham Hazeldine. Yeah. So it was just between that. It's just before Gina was just about to start. John was away on holiday, and it was just Caroline and Nick, and I was there for 6 weeks, and it was absolutely brilliant. I got to learn what a boutique agency was. I got to learn life from the agent side of things, which was really fascinating. And Caroline is so well respected, and John and Gina and Nick, in their own way. And Grantham Hazeline's probably one of the top boutique agents, I'd say, now out there across the spectrum, really. And yeah, it was just fascinating to hear and learn how to negotiate from probably one of a very strong negotiator in the game. I think a lot of people know Caroline for being a fair, but very good negotiator. And gosh, you need to know your stuff going into it. But it was amazing hearing her, and almost I got to see why so many actors go into being successful agents, because you're acting on the bloody phone to people, going, you can see the way your voice is going. It depends how much money you might get for your clients at the end of it. And my gosh, that was fascinating. So that was brilliant. And I was so thankful for Royal Welsh letting me do a sort of slightly different placement. And then I had to write my sort of thesis, which was fine. I did that for the following year. But then the first job after that, again, I think it's a classic case of, doing internships, because that was basically another internship. You are putting yourself out there in terms of you not getting necessarily financial income, but you're getting experience and you're making your contact list grow. And Caroline was very instrumental in me getting my next job, and my first job, which was as associate producer and box office manager at Charing Cross Theatre. So off West End Theatre, Stephen Levy ran it. Well, still runs it. Is a well-known off West End producer. Used to own theatres on Broadway, and it was an interesting split role. They were very open. It was a box office management role, but also an associate producing role. And I think it was a very good experience of sort of, I guess from my point of view, like knowing what you're signing up for was key, and also maybe not saying yes to every opportunity, because I did get to do associate producing with them, which is brilliant, and I learned some really great lessons. But a lot more of the role was box office management. And when I started the role, there was a team of 3, and very quickly I didn't realise that those people were leaving. So I was but great experience of Fringe and off West End, right? There's not the resource there, so you have to do everything. And it was, there's me as a box office manager, me as a associate producer, got Stephen as the producer, raising the investment, producing the show, Sean, Sweeney, very well known ticketing, expert, but also as a producer. And it was just, small team, get stuff done, really. But I don't think it was the right fit for me. And Caroline Hazeldean then was also very instrumental in me getting my next job, which was at the wonderful United Agents as a sort of temporary assistant and like runner and a bit of everything, really, which again was a great jump and a fascinating place to be, going from Fringe West End to watching James Corden and Ricky Gervais and Natalie Dormer, all these amazing actors and artists just walk through the door. And it was an incredible place to learn the larger side of agents, and also especially like the links with Broadway and Hollywood more and more. So there's a lot of British talent doing very well out in Hollywood, and that was amazing to sort of be a part of that and see that. And then I sort of found my natural home in theatre at Ambassador Theatre Group, where I joined as a regional programmer, and I was there for nearly 4 years, which is brilliant.
Tell us about that regional programmer. We had MJ Cox on last week, and he was talking about programming. So from a side of working for an individual company, Celador, so a producing company, and also talking about then the other side of it, looking after programming for 2 venues. And so we chatted about the differences there. Obviously, ATG, so you were working, they're not a producing house, so you are receiving house. So tell us a little bit about and did you program for like the entire country? Like, how did that work? 'Cause
it wasn't just 2 little venues. I mean, love Michael. It is interesting. No. What's amazing is seeing Celador's growth. I mean, that's just another thing, just to go, to watch them grow and build an empire is amazing. It's amazing to be have such great friends and contacts, and at all levels of that company, and watch them grow. It is brilliant. But ATG, it's sort of split into 3 areas almost. So you've got the venue and the operation side. You've got ATG Tickets, which is probably the largest ticketing group within theatre specifically. And then we had ATG Productions and Sonia Friedman Productions, which is part of the ATG family, but fiercely independent, I think is the polite words to say. But it was amazing to be there. And so I got to work in the head office in Charing Cross Road, right in the centre of the West End. So I was working in a brilliant team where I was basically a junior programmer. There was 2 sort of more senior programmers. There were then 2 senior programmers, and then we had Nikki Monk, who is again a legend, someone who's done a lot for my career. She is like a programming goddess, and she's just the most fantastic woman and an inspirational sort of leader in that sort of way. And then we had Stewart Griffiths as our director. So Stewart used to run Birmingham Hippodrome, and he's now chairman of Regent's Park, as well as his role at ATG. And then there was a London team, which was Michael Linus, Charlie, and Holly. And so ATG regionally have 21 theatres, and within that there was like 2 sort of more musicy venues in Folkestone and Stoke-on-Trent. Now they've grown that, so that's that's 19 theatres, the 2 music venues, Folkestone and Stoke-on-Trent, and then they've got 2 major music venues now that they've been. One is a redevelopment and one is being newly built. So Swansea Arena's newly built, and then Stockton Globe they're building.
Wow.
So yeah, fascinating. 3 theatres in Scotland. Unfortunately, nothing in Wales, which is where I live. But now they've got Swansea, which is brilliant. They've got their foothold there. The Red Empire continues to grow, and then a lot of theatres all over England.
Just to give some idea of it, let's round it off to 20 venues in terms of programming. 52 weeks a year. That's over 1,000 weeks of programming.
Yeah.
I just want to halt on that, because people might go, oh yeah, okay, 20, right, not actually quite realise the volume on 20 venues, over 1,000 weeks of programming. How do you and as we were chatting with MJ, it's a case of you can't have 2 80s musicals next to each other. You can't do horror plays or ghost story. You have to
balance the program, so it's got to be balanced. You've got to, if you really want to operate a great venue, you need to have a mixture of also subsidized work, so opera and ballet. It might not be for absolutely everyone's taste, but there's definitely an audience. You've got to have creative learning time, so that you can have stage schools for kids, but also for other stuff, whether it be with access or ambulant groups, or there's so much to consider. You don't necessarily want to have musicals every single week of the year.
Right.
You've got pantos. Some theatres have relationships with resident companies. So in Glasgow, you've got Scottish Opera and Scottish Ballet, very powerful groups. And obviously that's their home, so you want them to be there. So when they're in residence, you've got to work out what you can and can't do. What was interesting is a lot of the venues have distinct brands.
In Liverpool, the Empire over the summer went down to one-nighters. So they were like, there's no. I used to look at it and think, flipping heck, all of that. Then all over the country.
Yeah.
And how many are in the programming team again?
So when I was there, I mean, they luckily were able to expand the team somewhat in the end of when I was near the end of when I was at ATG, but and I'm really hoping that they get to keep everybody through this time. But really, the vast majority of the time I was there, it was there's 4 of us in sort of like the programming team, and then Nikki as our sort of head of programming, who was programming, but also in every meeting you can think of with all the different parts of the business, to try and make sure that we were just programming. And we did over 6,000 performances a year. So when you think about 1,000 weeks, you're not going to fill everything. You're not going to want to fill everything. You're going to want to put some maintenance in. There was sometimes theatres were shut for 6 months for capital development, and you've almost got to make it look like they're not shut. Keep everyone happy. That's all going on. So that's interesting with this scenario now. But yeah, there was a lot. So we basically were almost responsible for near enough 1,000 performances each. It was happening in a diary system that we were all jumping in live at the same time. So that has its own issues, but it was an incredibly talented, skilled team. One of my my old boss at HG, Grant, he leads Celador programming, so he's Michael's boss now. So it's amazing to see how people move and grow from there. But I learned everything from him and Nikki and Philip and Annie, who are like our core team. You have to learn lots of skills. But there's a lot of skills that actually I learned from stage management in terms of scheduling, and the production knowledge came into its own then, because you need to know when people can get in, when they will be able to play. All this information you somehow just managed to absorb.
Going back to stage management experience, when you have a show like Les Mis coming into a venue, you can sort of say, all right, the set up and get in time, etc., is going to be so very different to say Rocky Horror, for example. Yeah. And what they need. So having that experience, I'm going to come on to questions in a minute, but going back just a touch, we don't need to talk too much on this, but I find it really interesting. And again, it's clarifying that idea of what a job like you do or how it really entails. let's forget what's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
2022, when do you start programming? January 2022 in a company like ATG. When does that start? It being
ATG was for big musicals. You're talking about 3 years ahead.
wow.
So because you got to think about these massive shows. So the big ones we mean are like Lion King's the biggest, Les Mis, Phantom, Wicked. We call them sit downs because they would go and take over a venue from 2 months to 6 months. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that you would try and do at least 2 years ahead. Obviously, it doesn't mean that they're all going to be ready to go, confirmed, but you might be having conversations almost 5 years in advance of a project happening, because you might book it 3 years, they might change their time, but and it links into almost the time it takes to develop a new big musical. So you can imagine Back to the Future, that had a residency at Manchester Opera House, and that's becoming a great testing bed for new shows. So Bat Out of Hell did a residency there, Back to the Future did a residency there as a sort of like soft launch, develop it. And I think that's a great strategy for the venue.
When I graduated, it used to be Plymouth Theatre Royal was that.
Yeah.
All the musicals before they came to the West End did Plymouth Theatre Royal, and now it's
now it's Curve Leicester, arguably, in that sense. However, brand new big juggernaut shows are, as another strategy of having 2 venues in Manchester. The Palace is very successful as a musical house, as is the Opera House, but they're very similar sizes. You go, well, actually, we can give you 6 months of a year to really test this, and then you're part of a development, which is, I think, a lovely thing for a commercial venue operation company to do. This is not even talking about your ATG productions and everything else going on there, but it was an insane time, and what was great as well is I got to do a lot of tour booking for ATG productions when I was very much working with Richard and Adam, and Emily, the main producers there, and getting to watch them have their successes was brilliant. Being part of like the 9 to 5 team and watching that just go up and going, oh, okay, we've got a year's tour that we were going to go on, because we didn't think the West End was necessarily going to do as well as it did. Let's just move that whole tour by a year because we're going to keep it in the West End. But those sort of things happen, and almost like there's all these analogies, right? You go, when you're a stage manager or a DSM, you need to make sure that your book or the book for the show could be read, hopefully by a lay person. I mean, it's not going to be the case, but in theory, and you need to have copies, you need to have it all ready so that if the stage management bus miraculously hit you and took you out, somebody else could step up and do it, right? It's the same in programming. Like, that programming bus was coming on weekly, and not in the sense of taking out programmers, but like in terms of shows moving. And if Disney said, look, we need to move the Lion King because of this reason, you're talking about 6 months of work that you're moving, and then all of that work you've done. And as Michael said about pencils, now there's a world where there's 4th and 5th pencils, so you've got 4 or 5 different shows fighting for one day or a week, and it is crazy. It's and it's definitely something we do as promoters. We book the tours, and that is those skills from that job is absolutely incredible for me now.
We've got 20 minutes left. We probably have done a 4-hour session on this, so I'm going to plow some questions. I'm going to ask this question because this actually leads on to the next part of your career. I was just wondering how the main difference between producing a theatre show, live music event, concert. Also, what are the similarities? So now you've moved on to Cuffe Taylor, music promotion. What have you found? Are there massive differences? Is it different because I guess most of the music stuff is like one-nighters, and so is that more? Give us a little.
I mean, what was great about ATG in terms of programming team is, although we all had our sort of areas, and in the end I moved into like the musical theatre weekly programming, which is what I was wanting to do. We all also kept hold of one-nighters because you need to be able to program everything. So you need to be able to go, and jump in and do a program, a massive sit down. You need to be able to program lots of weeks. You need to be able to program one night. So a lot of it is one night. The first difference was for me was having to learn about 500 theatres and venues around the UK rather than 21. But it's all about scale, right? Lots of different West End places, about dealing with festivals. That was a really good learning curve, and something I'm sort of doing more now. in our team. And yeah, there's like the Royal Albert Hall, for instance, has lots of different regulations because it's a beautiful old protected building. And yes, we had similar ones in some of the theatres we operated, but this is like on a different scale, I guess. A lot of the role is the same though, right? So, a producer will a lot of the time book the tour unless they have a tour booker. A promoter books a tour unless we have someone in the team who can do it, and I think the only real difference is that we are, I would personally say from my experience, much more keyed into the promotional aspect of it. So marketing is a huge part of it. And also, we deal a lot more directly with major talent. So in our team, one of our bosses, Peter Taylor, is Sheridan Smith's manager and agent. So, as a producer, yes, you would probably deal with her if she was going to be in your show. But as a promoter, you almost become part of that wider team. It's interesting in that sort of way. And there's a lot of like unspoken sort of rules and stuff. But, you are there to develop an artist's career. In terms of musical theatre producing, you would hope that, let's say the show is successful, you might then tour again 2 or 3 years, you might do an international tour. If it's not successful, you don't do it again. However, artists can have a rocky sort of tour and you'll still work with them in the future. There's a lot more longer relationships in that sense. And I think a lot of the time it is scale. And what is interesting is that a lot of the promoting and the artists and stuff that we work on is of a massive scale compared to some of the musicals I've been involved with, even as an associate producer on The Wedding Singer. You can look at the budgets and go, oh my God, this is a 30-week tour, and you can spend the same amount of money in one night at the O2.
Wow,
that is a real thing to get over. Is looking at things going, oh my gosh, okay, it's not my personal money, but you can't mess it up in that sense. So it comes on to a really great quote I love, and I read it the other night. I've been reading, as I told you earlier, James, Robert Iger, the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, he's written a brilliant book called Ride of a Lifetime, which is sort of memoirs on creative leadership. Now, I think everyone should read it, actors especially, because this is the guy who ran the Walt Disney Company, which is the biggest entertainment conglomerate almost, because they've got Hollywood studios, they've got Fox, they've got TV, theme parks, music, they've got everything. Live Nation, where I work, we're the biggest live entertainment company in the world. But Disney's definitely like the largest in terms of entertainment content provider in that sense. And he says it's not science. This is interesting because a lot of people go, what's the $1 million question? It's a science. It's not science. Everything is subjective. There is often no right or wrong. And that is something that is so interesting in terms of everything we do. Me and my boss, Ben, who I work very closely with, and I like to think that we're like a sort of team, and he's done so much for me. He was actually my first client at ATG, interestingly, and then we both moved over to Cuffe Taylor at different times and are creating this lovely, brilliant theatre touring team that Ben's created and I'm fondly a part of. It's not science. We spend nights looking at budgets, changing little things, and yes, it can be very scientific and very calculated in that sense. It becomes numbers on a sheet, right? But you're thinking about a creative product that you're creating, and is the Royal Albert Hall the right venue? These are the questions that every producer asks. I think at the level that I was working on in terms of with ATG and with the clients I had, the Bill Kenwrights, the Cellar Doors, Wicked, all these big shows, there isn't that much choice for those musicals in terms of everywhere that they can go. ATG has usually the main musical house in most cities. If not, there's HQ theatres. If not, it's independent. But every place really has one go-to venue. Where when you talk about music or entertainment, or especially like me and Ben and I, we work not just on music. We do a lot of different theatre stuff, and we have got the Question of Sport tour with the BBC and are developing projects with them. Taking TV IP, intellectual property and brands, and taking it into a more theatrical space. We didn't actually go to the theatres necessarily. There was a couple like the Palladium and Southampton Mayflower that worked really well, but we went more down the concert hall route because of the audience. And it's that thing. It's all about. A lot of it comes down to guts and trying to know your audience and trying to think where they would want to go and see the show. And again, it's that trifecta: right place, right time. right audience, right show. Really, I think it's a quadfecta. But
I'm going to plow through some other questions here that you don't need to answer these. I just want to touch base. Alex asked about pet hate when you see actors in audition rooms. That we check out the Q&As with directors, with casting directors for that one. We've got a lot more other questions. That's kind of off point with this one, Alex. But great question. Also, what's the best way to approach a stage manager if something isn't working during tech show? Just go up and say hi. It's not
absolutely working. Yeah. Well, you know what? Say hi to them at a meet and greet. Say hi to them before. Build that relationship before something goes wrong. Because I'll probably tell you, if it's going wrong, it might not be down to the stage manager. You might need to look at.
I'll tell you something. The first, make sure what you don't do is talk to anybody else about it.
Absolutely.
For weeks, something's wrong. You go, this is a problem, and if that's the correct line that's been set up within whatever production you're in terms of who you communicate with, then just go to the stage manager.
Yeah, follow the process, right?
Follow the process.
Stage manager first, or
Yeah, or if it's the production, whoever, company manager, whoever you're supposed to go to, nip it in the bud. Do it quickly. Don't gossip about it. That's my advice on that one. Martin Smith, I have a cheeky question with regards to everything happening in COVID world. What would you recommend out of workers and actors do to stay and be productive in this scenario?
I've got a really great one. You should watch the CCI because they've got 6 hours a day of free classes. We've been saying about this for months, haven't we, mate? Literally. Martin, you need to check out all these amazing videos on this platform.
Absolutely. Tory Vice Chair Caroline Johnson said earlier that everyone in the UK qualifies for government support. What more can people in the creative sector who clearly don't qualify convince her otherwise? Again, this is not really for now, but what I would say is write to your MP. Write to your MP. Write to SALT. Write to Equity. They're doing amazing stuff. Write to your MP. Every single day, Rosie and I have. We've got the responses. They have been horrible responses. We've written again. And we write again. Do not let them get away with it. That's that. Move on. What is your favourite show you have worked on in any capacity, either as a producer, actor, promoter?
Oh, this is great. That's a good question, isn't it? I've got to be honest. I probably think, in terms of like before now, really, my favourite show, there were two, and it was actually at Kenny Wax's. It was, your first West End show is always one that you think, God, and I'm talking about the Royal We. It wasn't my show, but being part of a West End show that was original and going into town, and did anyone really know it's going to be that successful? I don't think we did at the time, and it was incredible, the response, and that was just euphoric. That was amazing. And likewise, Top Hat. And actually, one of the loveliest things happened. We opened the tour in Wimbledon, and I went with Kenny to the matinee before press night, and he goes, "You've always got to come to a midweek matinee because this is what happens." Open the door, and there was just a sea of lovely old ladies with purple hair, because they've been to the hairdressers, all fluffy, humming along to Fred Astaire and Ginger Ale, and I nearly cried. It was just the most beautiful moment. That was a really special time for me because it was my first experience. In terms of like now, it's tough, but there's so many great shows that we work on. In Cuffe Taylor, I could never possibly, say which one's better than the other. But there's some great big things coming soon, so watch out. Yeah.
What advice would you give emerging creatives when it comes to pitching?
Personalised emails. Me and James, I spent so many nights with a glass of wine, and Rosie as well, going, "Oh my gosh, the amount of emails you get when people don't direct it to you, or and I'd seen that at United Agents. Actually, it was really interesting. They were getting hundreds, if not more emails a day from people pitching all over the spectrum, directors, under the line, creatives, backs. Everybody was writing to that super group basically, and it was very, very clear. Do your research and find out who you want to talk to. It might not be, hey, United Agents, do you really want to send that email to Dallas and Lindy and Ruth? I don't think you do. That's that's not going to get to them. You need to find out who it is for, put for the attention of. You will 9 times out of 10 get a response. If you don't, it might be because there's no unsolicited emails. There might be other reasons, but the biggest thing, and we both I know we agree, is I think I think cold calling isn't a great way of doing it, but it's writing personalized emails, being clear and concise, saying what you want, and then attaching other information. Because if that person's interested, they will look.
I think that's what I was going to add in, Sam, absolutely, is make sure when you are writing this pitch email that you have it ready to go, not ready, because, and this is in our experience, you'll get that response. You'll just happen to land that email or whatever at exactly the right point, that they have time, that they've read it, that they're interested in the project, and they come back and go, yeah, can you shoot me across X? And you
be ready to shoot it across.
In 10 days, you've lost them. It's gone.
And not, mate, that happens at all points of your career. I had that the other week going, oh, can we just do this? Just doing a little initial thing. Yeah. What do you want to offer? 2 weeks later. But it's different in that sort of level. They know who you are. They know that, I wasn't expecting them to say, yes, come, would work with you on that sort of stuff. So that's quite a humbling experience as well, I think, for people like that in that sort of level. But emails.
I think we answered this one. I was just wondering what the main differences were.
Yeah, we've done that one. Yeah,
a great question. Thank you, Glory, for that. Gareth, this is awesome. What a key aspect of promoting and producing would you think is least understood, recognised? And is it also true that you played Roger in Rent?
Oh, we're waiting for that one. Well done, Gareth. What key aspect of
wait, did you play Roger in Rent?
Oh, shut up. I did. Stop it. This is before. Aren't you casting it? I mean, I'm ready and available. Is it done?
I think they're going to be announcing the cast this week.
If you need an alternate, Joe will. I know James and Rosie are your, casting directors, but I'm also really good at it. I was a whole. It was
a great angel. What are the key aspects of promoting and producing you think at least understood, recognised? I think we've covered a lot of that kind of stuff. But is it you want to just
that's a good point. I think what people don't realise, and me and Ben, who's my boss, and we work together on all the projects for Cuffe Taylor that we manage. We were saying this quite a bit, and I don't think people quite realise in producing that a lot of it is, yes, you're emailing out or you're pitching out to get work. You're then spending a lot of time on Excel looking at budgets, because it is you are in arguably a financial position and you're in a decision-making position. The nice stuff happens later when you can employ people and you can do the creative stuff, but there's a lot of hours, and it is an industry that doesn't sleep, I think. And a lot of the time we all show on our Instagram the glamorous side when we're sharing a glass of champagne or bottle at the, after the Olivier Awards, saying good job, good year. But there are a lot of long late nights, but you've got to be passionate about it, and I think that's just the biggest thing. Like, we do it because we love it. Same as in casting, it's not in an audition room every day going, yes, next. No.
It's the iceberg of underneath is the admin, and on the top is the actual in the room. When we're trying to organise maybe 250 actors to come in for an audition process. The volume is unbelievable, and that's why we often say, and we've been saying it for 3.5 months on these Q&As, that when you write to a casting director or to an agent, or to know that that's what they're dealing with. So unless it is so relevant and you are so right for what they're doing at that time, the idea of responding is just, it becomes impossible. Alice, again, what advice would you give to emerging creators wanting to pitch? So we talked about pitching. Commercial.
More commercial venues. It's exactly the same thing, isn't it? It's about having all the information ready. I think in a body of an email, there's no right or wrong way. Again, it's not a science; it's subjective. No right or wrong, but it definitely is. A lot of people do not necessarily have the time to read a massive long email. They might be reading your email on their phone. So if you can always think about what looks almost like easy to read on a phone or a tablet, because they might be answering emails at 2 a.m. Another thing, actually, and I saw it on David Hutchinson's page, but I think he took it from somebody else, was that people might answer you at ridiculous hours at night, but you're not expected to answer them back. That's just because their working day is crazy.
When we send out audition slots for busy audition times, we do it on a Sunday, and that's because we want to take that time. But we don't ever expect people to answer on the Sunday. But we do it so that we don't actually get answers, so that we can get all the things. But so many agents now work weekends, and we respond saying, can you please deal with this tomorrow? Like, this is because we're working. I'm not asking you to work.
Yeah, that's a really important thing, especially now.
Yeah.
And looking after ourselves, right? Yeah.
Definitely. Sam Sherlock, hi guys, really great hour. Are there any hidden hurdles you think have not been thought of in post-COVID music and theatre production?
That's a bloody good question.
Hidden hurdles you think have not
No,
been
because we've had a lot of time to think about what we can do.
Yeah.
And this is something that we're both very passionate about. I think if people haven't watched it, try and watch the panel for DCMS that happened about a week ago. Lloyd Webber and Rebecca Kane Burton did a brilliant hour and a bit about theatres and what we can do. And then Melvin Ben from Live Nation, who runs Festival Republics, that's Reading, Leeds, all the big festivals. He spoke about mass testing and how that's what has to happen. And
oh my gosh,
go ahead. And then Lucy Noble from Royal Albert Hall said some really good stuff. Most things are there. You got to think about. We will most likely have been closed for a year. By the time probably things get back up, unless the government have other plans. We've had a lot of time to think. A lot of us, I say us, but venue directors have been thinking about safety. We've been thinking about financial implications and how we do it, and insurance and moving tours. And we've all looked at our own areas and spent a lot of time whilst not doing events, making sure next year is almost like foolproof. Will there be hurdles and hidden hurdles? Of course. I think actually what's interesting is this is going to be the move to digital. So digital tickets everywhere. I think paper tickets are a thing of the past almost.
Programs.
Yeah, because it's clean. It's just on your thing, right? So
which would be gutting for me, and I know it's save. I do a lot to save the planet in not eating meat and doing all lots of things like that, and it would break my heart because it's the one little thing that I love from the theatre.
Oh, it's a program, right?
25 years of going to see shows, fringe productions, West End productions, whatever it is, that program, and looking back and going, oh my God, look at that. That's so-and-so. And they're this massive star, and they were in a show that you saw 20 years ago as the spear carrier. And you're like, wow, now they're Hollywood stars. And you just, all of that.
I think programs will still be produced and you can buy them. I just don't think they'll be given out as regularly as they would have done. And I think Sam's question is brilliant. I think we're ready. I think everyone is very, very confident that we're ready, and we've just not been given the chance to show it. I think, bless him, Lloyd Webber's been, the government are trying to paint him in a bad way, saying, oh, you shouldn't have done the experiment with a social distance audience. No, that was what was available at the time. We need to do something. So if you're one of those people out there who are saying he's doing things wrong, unfollow me and look for another career, because you need to support the people doing something.
Let me know what you're doing.
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. And look, Cuffe Taylor put on these amazing driving concerts, and then local lockdowns happened, and you couldn't go ahead, and that was so heartbreaking to watch my colleagues put everything into it for it just not to happen that way. Six the musical, we know that was going to happen on that. It was but no, I think we're ready. I think the industry's ready.
At the time when that happened, a lot of people didn't believe that, and then the city started to lock down. I don't want to go into that because we've got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Alice, Squad Goals have been running at Dagenham Football. I can't wait to see this. I'm going to go and see the awesome Charlotte Payne in this in a few weeks with Rosie. This last few weeks, in terms of smaller companies producing, do you think they're leading the way with social distance theatre?
That's a good thing. I think there are some really
there are lots of people out there really doing a lot for it, but they are definitely one.
I think it's because they're the only ones who can. So. And a lot of them are nimbler in terms of organisational size and cost, and it costs us more money to put a show on, and in terms of the scale and stuff, than a smaller company, because there's more people you have to think about paying and overheads and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, look, Contact was brilliant, and our dear friend Laura White, who does CCI, she had some brilliant reviews from the Guardian and that, and that was amazing that Katie Lipson was leading on. She's really flying the flag. But I think
I've been saying that there's kind of this renaissance within the arts now, and it is this lockdown. What it has given is an opportunity that if there are things that you didn't like before, to start looking at how you can change those things. And there are plenty of areas that needed to change, and hopefully there is a possibility that the new world order things will have changed slightly.
Yeah.
But also there's been this kind of guerrilla feel to theatre again, which was happening a lot when I graduated in the mid-90s, that people were literally using alternate spaces, because again it was so limited on what you could or couldn't get into, what you could do, the place you could use. And that is opening up again. People are thinking, and I think that's really exciting for the future in the industry, that we don't just go, oh, that theatre is booked, I can't do anything, that you actually go,
innovate. That was another big one. You got to innovate until you die. I think that was another Robert Iger quote, is that you have to innovate. You got to take big creative risks, and it doesn't matter on what scale, but you have to innovate, and that's just what we're gonna have to do, and that's what we're spending a lot of time doing. You know, I know we've only got like 4 seconds, but you know, we're doing digital streaming just in the interim, just so we're doing something.
Yeah.
And you know, we're very much looking forward to going back to live entertainment, and it's what we're working so desperately hard to do. But mate,
I think that is the most great quote to end this session on, which is innovate until you die. I know that's certainly the way Rosie and I think.
Yeah. Mr. Iger, I don't want to get sued. Robert Iger, CEO of Disney, innovate until you die is one of the best things I think he said. And that is it. Get his book, because I think that's the only other thing to sort of end on, is if you're not doing really much of anything, look at other areas. You know, Stand By Please was a great podcast on stage management. If you're an actor or director, learn about what they want to do, because you'll come back better equipped, with hopefully more skills and hopefully more creative ideas and more innovative ideas for the new world. And that's when we need everyone on their A game, right, and doing everything and anything.
Sam Griffiths, what an outstanding hour. We could have probably gone on for 2 or 3 hours. So I think you're going to have to come back. I think
I'd love to.
And you'll be able to talk about all those exciting projects that I know you can't talk about right now, but maybe in November we can chat further about that.
I think November, early December, I think there might be some great things we can talk about. Yeah.
Sam, I'm going to take you out of the live stream, but don't go anywhere. You've been awesome. Thank you so much for all the people watching, and from me and Rosie, really appreciate your time.
Hey, anytime. Love you all. Thank you.
I had to really race that hour because there was so much to cover, and I think we will be definitely getting Sam back in November to cover other areas, because it is such a massive chunk. I'm going to just put up here so Sam can see. Really interesting. Thank you so much for your time. Fantastic chat, guys. Your vlog. I would love to do a shout out for. Look out for Up Your Vlog. A great vlogger, blogger. Check that out. Up Your Vlog. Cheers, says Martin. Glory says thank you, and Gareth says thanks, guys. Thank you, Gareth. That is it for now. We will be back very soon, 3 o'clock. Wellbeing Habits with Katie Shute. We love her on here, as we love